All right, Dick Allgaier here in Honolulu, Hawaii, and I'm talking with Bo Polny of Gold Forecast 2020. You're in California. How are you today, Bo?
Great, Dick. It's a pleasure to speak with you. My wife and I had an opportunity and had a blessing to meet you over in Vegas, and we really enjoyed our chat with you. Of all the people we met, you definitely stood out in our minds. So thank you for taking the time to speak with us there.
Your wife is so lovely. I enjoyed meeting her, and you're such a gentleman and such a classy guy. I always like talking with you. I'm not as religious as you, but we're gonna say a little prayer here because we had some problems with Zoom. Everyone in the world is using Zoom, and we're doing this conversation to help people today, to give them information, and we're doing it with a good heart and good intentions. So Zoom, help us out here.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, Bo, you and I agree that the world is never going back to the way it was. We're going into big changes, both politically, sociologically, geopolitically, geophysically, financially. The world, we're about to go into some big changes, and we may not agree exactly what those are and what they exactly mean, but we do agree, don't we, that something big is coming. We're in the middle of something big happening right now.
I would 100% agree with you, Dick. And actually, we're not that far apart because even with what, well, I was thinking like with what you do with crypto viewing, right? All you're doing, and say if I'm wrong, but you're looking spiritually into another dimension is really what you're doing, and having information. You're bringing information from over there, you're bringing it back to Earth. And where is God? God's in a different dimension. Okay, so he's not on Earth right now. So we're not terribly different in how we look at the world. We both look at the world that there is another element that we don't see.
Exactly. So
Right?
we differ maybe in the terminology or the semantics of it, but there is a greater field of consciousness, and I have no problem calling it the God consciousness. There is a greater field of consciousness, and we as spiritual beings have a foot in there, and in our physical bodies are a filter to all that information, and some of us can learn. It's a natural communication skill to communicate with that greater field of consciousness.
Right, and think about this, right? So that's been available to us for ever since we've been on this earth, to communicate with a higher power, okay? But then man intervenes, steps in the way of it and says, no, you need to talk to a man who can then intervene with a higher power. And so like religion was created, and then they have like a pope who says that you're not allowed, only the pope can speak with God, and he's the intermediary, right? So you need so the world is set up that you're not supposed to be able to tap into the other dimension, the other realm.
Yeah.
And you need you need government or man to be the middleman between you and that. And you are a perfect example of what you do, is how you are able to tap into another dimension, another realm, without the use of another man, because it's available to everybody. And what I've done is I've tapped into the timing cycles of how it all works within the Bible. So the Bible is nothing more than, it's a story of thousands of years ago, and it has an end, and the story was written from the beginning. Now, the higher being that you might call a higher being, I call God, and then the God has the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. But any spiritual person you talk to clearly understands that there is a higher entity, higher dimension. Yeah. That's the basis of everything, because without that, you're stuck with, the theory of evolution, which is a joke.
Yeah. My remote viewing teacher, when he was in the military, they got called in their unit from time to time to justify their existence. And he gave a demonstration to some officers, and there was one colonel who was a very fundamentalist Christian. And he saw the demonstration, and he knew that they had to they had no access to the information other than through their mental powers. And he saw that, and he just stood up and said, "That's of the devil," and he stormed out. So
yeah, well, and because if you're connected with God, you know when you're hearing the other side.
Yeah,
you really do. And so when you hear something that's completely about blasphemy or against God, it's so apparent when you are connected with God, because God is a higher entity. It's nothing. It's the the God is the truth, right?
yeah.
And so that's what the world is trying to not show you, is the truth. And so we've been stuck in this paradigm, for generations of lies. And that's where we're at right now. And we are now at a pivotal time point. So, I've listened to some of your prior podcasts in the past few days, and it's very interesting, how what you're seeing and what I'm calculating
They're overlapping.
Are all pointing to the fact that September is supposed to be pivotal in our world. Now, that transcends into next year. So it's not like there's a day that all of this changes, but there also are dates that are important.
We have a difficult time with dates. We get a, like just over the horizon. My own predictions have sometimes a 90-day shelf life.
Yeah, that's what you were saying. That yes, I heard that.
6 months.
When you hear short term, that could be up to 90 days is what you're saying.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk the dollar. I want to put up one of your charts, and let me share that. You agree that the dollar is pivotal in what's going on here?
Yeah, that's why I sent you this, because the dollar. What I sent you is a monthly chart on the U.S. dollar, and this goes all the way back to 2007, 2008. Now, biblically, numbers are important. So that would equate to 12 years. Why is 12 years important? Well, what better question is, why are there 12 months in a year? Why biblically were there 12 apostles? Why does 12 seem to be a completionary number? I don't know, but I still know that there are 12 months in a year to finish the year and a new year begins. Okay, so we have a 12-year cycle on the dollar that basically carved out a head and shoulders. Now, what is a head and shoulders? Well, I put it in a black box in the middle of the screen for yourself to see, Dick, and for your viewers. But basically, they are a terrible chart formation that leads to a sharp decline aggressively. So in the year 2015, you'll see the dollar made a left shoulder. In 2017, in late 2016 into January of 2017, the dollar topped, made a head. And then since then, it's carved out a right shoulder. That right shoulder was made on the stock market crash of March of this past year. And now the dollar dropped, and it's sitting on what is called a neckline. And the last trading day would have been yesterday on this chart, which would have been the 14th, and that's the white candlestick, and that's a monthly candlestick.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so the entire month represents that little white candlestick at the very end on the right side. The point is that the dollar, when it breaks that neckline, it collapses. Now, interestingly enough, I did an interview the other day, last week, with Wild West Crypto Show, and I basically showed them that from the head to the first decline, gold from the head to the bottom of the first decline made a vertical move, gold, of $175. Bitcoin at the same
analyst, we talked with another analyst who tells us that they're like inversely proportional. The dollar declines in value, precious metals are going to increase. I'm sorry,
yes, I should have prefaced that. You're correct, because basically what is gold? It's a hedge against government and the dollar, period, okay?
Well, so my view on that is that the value of gold remains steady. Yeah. It's just the value of the dollar that fluctuates. It takes more dollars to buy.
And you're right about that. It's another way of looking at it. That's exactly another way of looking at it. You're totally correct. So you have to compare the dollar against gold, and whichever one you want to call as a stable one. So if gold is stable, then the dollar is going to fluctuate relative to it, because that makes a lot of sense. So in this scenario, on that first drop, as the dollar
Should I put that screen back up again? I'm sorry.
As the dollar fell on that first run down, the gold moved $175 to the upside. And in Bitcoin, I think it did $2,000 or $2,500 on that move. Okay, so Bitcoin does move against the US dollar. So if we're waiting for cryptocurrencies to take off, do a moonshot, or have an awesome year, or just when is this going to all happen with cryptocurrencies? As your, as your show is called, Crypto Viewing. When do cryptos move? Well, they're going to move when the dollar falls.
Yeah.
Okay. Now on this last, and then just before you ask the next question, on this, that second part of the chart, when it broke the second wedge, okay, that's that second wedge. Bitcoin went from like 3,000 all the way up to 12,000. So it did about a $8,000 move. So on that, from the RS, blue RS, all the way down to the neckline, Bitcoin did approximately a $8,000 move. So it doubled the move that it did from the head to the first neckline. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah.
So what I'm basically trying to illustrate is that as the dollar is falling here, the magnitude of the move for Bitcoin and the cryptocurrencies and gold and silver is exponentially increasing. Does that make sense? So this next move, as the dollar falls into the low 80s, is going to be, so gold is not going to do $100 and $200. It'll do probably double or triple in price. And Bitcoin is going to easily get to 20 or 30,000 on that move because of the magnitude of the move we've already seen on the first piece of the leg down. Yeah.
Another thing that I've noted, you would think in COVID, with everyone locked down and the economy doing so poorly in Hawaii, it's really tough because we rely on tourism, and there's no tourism. It is dead here. My wife was watching the news yesterday and she said, come look at this. Real estate is booming. Real estate prices are going through the roof. Everyone's buying as much real estate as they can. I thought about that and I told her, I think what's happening is the Federal Reserve, and I don't call it the Federal Reserve, I call it the private bankers that make money out of nothing. They're flooding us with all this fake new money. And the money has to go somewhere, and people are desperate to take this money and put it into something tangible. That's why real estate's going up. It's why gold will do well in Bitcoin. Do you agree?
Absolutely. And think about real estate prices. So 10 or say 20 years ago, right, there was less liquidity. There was just less money around. Yeah. So a home that was worth $100,000 20 years ago will be worth maybe 2 million now or $1 million now, for the simple fact of what you said. There's more money.
Yeah. How long can they keep pumping this new money into the system before it? That's the question. I mean, to answer your question, go to that chart again and read what I wrote at the bottom. You might find this interesting. Let me share this again. August 1971, President Nixon ended dollar convertibility to gold. From August 1971 to August 2020 is 49 years, the end. Why is 49 years? You're gonna have to explain that to me.
Okay, so now biblically, it's 7 times 7 is 49.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so 7 times 7 years times 7 cycles of it is 49 years. That ended in August. Okay, so that cycle ended, and then the next year is a year of Jubilee. So what a Jubilee is, biblically, is a time point when you have to forgive debts. And if you don't do it, God makes it happen. So basically, we're at a point where whether we want to or not, it's forced upon the earth and the world by this higher power. You call higher power, I call God. Long term, the cycle ended for the dollar, and the next 12 months is going to be, and supposed to be, rather interesting and not good for the dollar, and really good for precious metals, Bitcoin, cryptocurrencies, all the way into next year. And then by the time that cycle ends, the dollar basically is taking it in the pants. And it doesn't die and go to zero, but it's sizably dropped in value. And from that point on, you're going to see Bitcoin, gold and especially silver go crazy because everybody's going to want the new money, God's money, right? And because silver and gold are limited and you can only get so much of it, where is all this liquidity going to go? Like, seriously, where do you think all the liquidity is going to go, Dick? Into crypto, right? Because it can suck it up faster than gold and silver can, because gold and silver only suck up the liquidity if they can physically get your hands on it.
Yeah. Well, I was interviewing someone yesterday who is in Washington State, and they're threatened by horrible fires. And a point I made to him was, if you have a substantial amount of gold and silver, it could be hidden in your wall, it could be hidden in a safe, buried in your backyard, or even in a secure location in a bunker somewhere else hidden. If those fires come and your house is going to get burned down and you have an hour to go, you're not going to be able to move that. What you will be able to leave with is your crypto money. You could take that in your head if you know your seed words. So that's why I like cryptos. Now I have some gold and silver too.
Oh yeah, and I that's why, I write cryptocurrency analysis and I write a gold analysis. Why? Because I believe in both. I think my true belief is in precious metals, because that is God's money. But on the other hand, man created crypto, so you got to be careful. Long years out, not tomorrow. Mm-hmm. So I'm fully in agreement with what you're saying about cryptos, but years out, they could become problematic, because just as you described as a beehive, right? There's a control, ultimately you could have some kind of controls come in or something happen. So if you're diversified in precious metals and cryptos, you have extreme flexibility in your life.
Oh yeah, much better than being in the stock market or having some money in the bank. When you...
Well, and another point too, so we go back to the dollar, right? So if the dollar drops in value by 30%, mm-hmm. Okay? If you're in the stock market, even if the stock market goes up to, do the math on this, if the stock market went up to, say, $30,000, right? The stock market goes up to 30. If the dollar has a 30% haircut, you sell the Dow, it's at 21, it's valued at 21,000. You see what I'm saying? Because the stock market becomes toxic assets, because every time you sell it, you have to liquidate it into the dollar. And then you have to go buy cryptocurrencies, which, Bitcoin might be at 20 or 30,000 by then. So some of these coins will be, and silver might be at $100. So no one's going to want later on these paper assets, because you're going to liquidate it into a dollar, which has lost significant value based on what I just, that chart, and the fact that, if this is a Jubilee year, which I believe it is, the dollar takes it in the pants all between now and to next year, you're liquidating into a dollar currency that's lost its value. And now you have to buy appreciated assets, gold, silver, and cryptos, which are much higher than they are today.
Bo, you and I had a very interesting and detailed conversation, both on camera and off camera, last October at the Litecoin conference. I went home after that conference, and based partially on my conversation with you, I got out of my 401k. I got out of the stock market, and I put it into cryptos in January and February, and it's done quite well. So thank you.
I'm glad. Yeah, I don't give advice.
Based on our own research too.
Yeah, I tell people what I do as well too, and if people want to listen, that's great. But what I'm telling you is what I believe in my heart. If you believe it's true, which you obviously do, Dick, because you acted on it, but why'd you do it? Because it felt right in your heart.
Yeah.
You didn't do anything and someone forced something on you. That's why whenever people make a decision financial in life, don't listen to somebody, listen to people, and then put it all in, and then feel, what does it feel in your heart? Does it feel right or wrong? But when you have a stock market crash and then they print I don't know how many trillions they printed in March into April.
Yeah.
But that pumped the market up. So what kind of market is it when you can print trillions of dollars, stick it back in the market, and float it right back up? So the whole thing's a scam.
We had the stock market at the level it was at in January with full employment, people traveling, tourism, the economy was just pumping, everybody was out going out to dinner, restaurants were open. Now in Hawaii, there is no travel. There's people aren't traveling on airlines, restaurants are closed, there's unemployment, but the stock market is at the same level. How is that possible?
Well, and so I didn't want to put I didn't want to give you like, I'm kind of trying to stay away from the stock market a little bit because what I was waiting for the stock market was that March crash.
Yeah.
So the cycles foretold it, we called it, it happened. And so now every stock market crash, the crash of 2001 into 2000, 2003, that started the bull market for gold.
Yeah.
Okay. The second crash was the next leg for gold to the upside. And this third crash we have is now the start of the third vertical move for gold, silver, and now this time around cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin. But you're right. So at that time, the market was up here, and this time, so the US stock market, I didn't want to include the chart, but I'm telling you, I'm looking at the chart on the monthly, just like I looked at what I sent you on the dollar. The chart is very similar. The stock market is completing a right shoulder.
Yeah.
Which means that if that is the case, and if it breaks, which I think is going to happen here in October, we're going to see a sizable sharp drop on the stock market, possibly in the next month in October. And that would correlate with semi-cycles because I do see cryptos having a significant or decent some volatility coming up next month.
Volatility, and then the money's got to flow somewhere.
Right.
As always, I don't offer investment advice. Your advice was really good. People need to get as much information as they can, be as knowledgeable as possible, and then listen to their inner voice and do what they feel is right. You have an offer you wanted to make? Well,
actually, before we even get to that, there's a couple of things another chart, if you can pop up page number 1 of what I sent you on the PDF.
Okay. Page 1, there we go.
And if you want, I can send you a link to this so your viewers can have it. So they can just click on the bottom of our interview. They can just click the link and they can see this 12 pages here. But page 1 talks about this Friday. I want to talk about the importance of this Friday relative to, so we look at the world differently, but I look at the world from a biblical standpoint. 2,600 years ago, a gentleman was a prophet by the name of Daniel, and that he wrote he gave a prophecy to Nebuchadnezzar, and that was on page 3. You don't need to go to it, but just you can pull it up.
May I interrupt you real quickly? It's my understanding that the people that run this world are aware of these cycles.
Yes.
They act upon them.
Yes.
Numerology is important to them.
Yes.
Planetary alignment.
Yes.
So what my knowledge, and some of it I can't share, very well overlaps with what you're saying.
Right. And so what I want to overlay is because they know these things, they're trying to bring in the false god. So they bring in the imposter before Christ returns. So the world is waiting for the return of Messiah, but they bring in the imposter by mimicking and overlaying a lot of what they're doing using what has been written by Daniel. And so you're right. But the point is the Daniel cycle,
Okay, I'm going to go back to that screen. So I won't argue religious philosophy with you, but there's a lot of agreement here. I know that the people that are running things watch these cycles and look at these dates, and I agree with a lot of that.
And that's why I wanted to bring this up, because it's so hard to disprove when 2,600 years ago, a gentleman by the name of Daniel, a prophet, interprets a dream for Nebuchadnezzar, and he describes basically the kingdoms that are on this earth, that have been on this earth, that haven't even been on this earth, but now we see all his prophecy come true. He described Babylon, he described Persia, he described Greece, he described Rome, and then he described the rise of the papacy, and then he further describe the United States. How is that possible if none of it has happened yet, unless the whole story was written from the beginning? Now, these elitists that run the world, they're trying to mimic a lot of what has been written by, or what has been written by God. And so they're trying to overlay their own version on the whole story. But the problem is that they have is, see, God, if you play poker or if you card games, in the deck, there is a card called the wild card.
Yeah.
Okay. Here's the problem. They don't have the wild card and God does. So they're trying to create their reality, but in essence, in the end, God has the wild card and he can pull it at any time to basically complete his mission. So what I'm trying to illustrate here is as a perfect example. So Daniel lays out a prophecy, and within that prophecy, he gives a Daniel's timeline. It's a 1260-day timeline overlaid twice, okay? So this is pretty crazy, but if you look at from the time of November 8th, 2016, when Trump gets elected, exactly to the exact day, 1,260 days later, oil, the world reserve currency, or basically the oil, which is the petrodollar, goes to zero. To the exact day.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
that was how could that happen? But that was to the exact day. Then you got to take this whole thing even further, because you can lay that into the 21st of April. So biblically, there's 30 days are important, and then 40 days. 40 years the Jews wandered. 40 years they wandered in the wilderness. 40. There's many examples of 40 and many examples of 30 within the Bible, or 3 out of 0. So then, so from April 21st, you add 30 days. And how crazy is this? But basically, you have a dam break in the town of Eden, or Edenville, Michigan. In the township of Hope. Now on that so that time point lines up with a full moon. Now Christ was born on a crescent moon. The crescent moon happens right after a full moon. So as interesting as that is, but right afterwards, you have the 31st of May, which is 40 days from April 21st, and that's Pentecost. That's the latter. That is when birth technically would be given of like the power of the Holy Spirit coming back onto the earth to power up the earth. And that's exact time point is when the US riots began. That exact point. I want to take that point further. So we finish with Daniel, we do another 1,260 days forward. That takes us to the end of 2023. So the point being is Trump's got a second cycle here as president, and so we've got a whole nother 3.5 years. Now in that time frame, we're going to overlay Noah. So if from that April 21 was really critical, because from April 21, that would equate to when Noah, or God, closed the door on Noah. Now the rain kept going and it stopped. That would have been 40 days, which would have been, again, May 31st. So how does it happen that all these dates just like overlap to the exact day? It's not possible unless it was written from the beginning. So, so Pentecost lines up exactly 40 days, and that's the exact biblical time point from when Noah, the rain would have stopped. But the water kept rising. So the waters from the deep kept rising, and they didn't stop until 150 days. Now, this is really crazy, because 150 days takes us to this Friday, September 18th. Now, I want to extrapolate on that, or expand on it, because that is actually the start of Rosh Hashanah, the holiest day of the year. Again, how does that happen?
Bo, let me interrupt. There's also a planetary alignment where, for the first time, I'm not exactly sure about this, I believe it's in thousands of years, all the planets are on one side of the sun. And if you look in the night sky, you can see Jupiter and Saturn are right next to each other. And then 90 degrees off of that is Mars, and Mars is the closest. There's a really peculiar planetary alignment that's happening.
Yeah, and biblically it says it's written in the moon, in the stars. So if you study that, there is a lot to be said about. That's why Jonathan Cahn talked about the blood moon cycles and all those things. So yeah, they've all passed, but they're interesting how these things all line up. But all I can tell you is that so this 18th, this Friday, Dick, is not only Rosh Hashanah, it's Elul 29. And you're going to say, okay, so what is that? Elul 29 is the exact day related to 9/11. So what happened was a few days before there was 9/11 was on a Tuesday. I think it was a Tuesday.
Mm-hmm.
And then on that day, 9/11 happened. They shut down the markets. Everything was closed. And on Monday, Elul 29. So it was like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday.
So Elul 29
Friday,
is a date that cycles through it.
every once a year.
In 2001, Elul 29 happened on 9/11.
No, it actually happened a few days before 9/11. And then Elul 29 was on a Monday. So that happened. So 9/11 was on a Tuesday. So the markets are shut down Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, 3 days, 3 trading days. The markets were closed, and then they reopened on Monday, Elul 29, and that ended up being the greatest stock market one-day crash in history.
When is Elul 29 this year?
Friday.
Friday.
And then immediately following that are the 10 days of awe. So that's where, the Jews, again, that's a God's calendar, but the Jews, they look for forgiveness from God, and they seek right, they seek God. But the point being is that this Friday onwards, I don't know what's happening, but I find it fascinating that it's 150 days from April 21. The mathematical probability is impossible. And then that is 1,260 days backwards to the Trump election, based on exactly Daniel's timeline. So the whole thing is something potentially big occurs this weekend, Friday, I don't know, but this Friday is a critical biblical date that can lead to something shortly thereafter. So I don't know.
Yeah, we'll watch for that.
Absolutely.
I was told by someone highly knowledgeable that President Trump is the reason he's in office is to oversee the bankruptcy of the United States corporation. That he's going to oversee the bankruptcy.
And I would agree that, because what will be the bankruptcy? It would be the collapse of the dollar, right? The collapse of the dollar will lead to the bond market breaking. Because when you sell bonds, you sell them into the dollar. Well, the dollar is collapsing. So the whole thing is a monetary collapse, and Trump has the ability to do that. So if we're in a year of jubilee where the debts are forgiven, or if they're not forgiven, but so something biblical happens to the dollar, Trump's there to take care of these events. And then if we overlay that back or step back to the Noah cycle, so Noah doesn't step off the ark for a whole year, or it's actually, I think it was, how many days was it? It was 370 days from the day the door closed. So that would take us all the way to April 26th of 2021. So until that time point, we're basically on the ark right now, if you want to equate that to a time biblically. So that's why we're seeing all these changes. And then by April of next year, we're supposed to be stepping into a new era. And so that takes us back to what we initially talked about, Dick, is how we both agree that nothing will ever be the same again. Yeah. From all angles, everything that we knew has come to an end. And I look at it as if we're on the arc, we're at a transition point for an entire year, and then we step into a new era next year. And that confirms what you were initially saying, how we're at a precipice where the old is finished financially, economically, everything that you knew has come to an end. And that is really the essence of how I look at it. And I obviously, if speaking with you, I find it amazing that we look at it the same way.
Yeah. Maybe a little slightly different angle. Yeah. I don't give advice, here's what I'm doing.
Same way, but a different angle. I'm sorry.
Yeah, here's what I'm doing personally. I don't give advice. Some gold, some silver, cryptos, food and water, and I love my family and my friends every day, and I appreciate every day and make the most out of every day we have. So nice talking with you, Bo. One final thing. Okay. You have an offer you want to make if people sign up for your newsletter your forecasts?
If they're interested, okay, so I'll be very clear about this, okay? If people are interested in looking and seeing, you know, more day cycles and when, because again, September, we do have a high coming in for cryptos, I believe, or it's an important time point, precious metals. October is supposed to be, there's a good entry date coming in October for the cryptocurrencies as well as gold, you know, paper gold. But if you're looking to trade cryptos, there's an important another date coming in October, because after that October time point, we're into November after the election into December, and it's going to get pretty exciting. I think we're going to have a nice strong finish to the year. But that means that there's going to be a lot of volatility and something big's supposed to come down in the last couple months of the year. So we'll see how this plays out or what events play out. But again, if you're a trader, if you want to play some swings, want to know some good cryptocurrencies to be holding, I basically cover that within my newsletter. So I offer it. It's a 14-day trial for $99. If they type in the code VIEW 49, VIEW 49, they can get that at $49 and try it for 2 weeks, and they can kind of see what we're talking about in terms of shorter term cycles if you're looking to do some trading. But again, this is only crystal clear for people who want who are looking for for more important dates to take advantage of some time points if they want to use those dates for some trading possibilities. But otherwise, what we talked about is back to the beginning. If you feel that what we're talking about makes sense, you feel like you want to buy some cryptocurrencies, or you want to buy some gold or silver, how does it feel in your heart? Because that's what you should do, is how deep down you feel within your body, because the world is at a very big time and point in change. And so you can do one of two things. You can either prepare or not prepare. But what we're talking about, Dick, it's going to happen. Okay.
Yeah.
And so when it happens, you're either going to be in a wonderful situation because finances will give you choices in life, or you didn't prepare and then you won't have any options or few. Yeah. So what we're talking about, I know in my heart is coming. You, Dick, speaking, from what your knowledge is, it's coming, okay? Mm-hmm. So between the two of us, the two witnesses, right? The point is what are you going to do? Are you going to act on it or not act on it? But those days are coming. And so all I can tell you is that if you've prepared, at least you will have many choices in life.
Yeah. Well, because of my remote viewing, I did some remote viewings, and a few years ago, some people got a hold of me and said, "Hey, you've mastered a pretty good skill here. You've kind of elevated yourself into a level where you need to be careful, and let us tell you some things." And one of the things they told me was that back through history, the story you just told of Nebuchadnezzar, there have been seers and prophets and people that have tapped into that divine knowledge. All right. They have been taken care of. So those people told me, "Dick, people with your abilities are traditionally cared for." And they didn't offer me any money or any real estate. What they offered me was, the financial system is going to change. You need to learn about cryptos. If you learn about cryptos and buy a little bit of Bitcoin, you'll be fine. Your family will be fine. That's what I was told.
They gave you something better than real estate. They gave you confirmation that what you knew to be true is true.
Yeah. Hey,
and that's all you need.
Yeah.
It's called foreknowledge.
Yeah. It's been wonderful talking with you. You're such a nice guy, and I always enjoy having a conversation with you. Thanks, we'll Dick. Watch. It's going to be interesting times. I think everybody stay safe, love your family, and I think those who have some precious metals in Bitcoin and other cryptos are going to be happy about that come December.
I think so too. And then that's only the first stage, because the real excitement come in third, fourth quarter of next year, Dick.
I agree. Yeah, I agree. All right. We'll talk again soon. Thank you, Bo.
Thank you, Dick. God bless you.